230 million euros. That's how much Man United has spent on signings in their first summer transfer window under Ruben Amorim. For context, only 3 clubs have spent more than the Red Devils in this window: Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea. Liverpool are the defending league champions. Arsenal are the premier challengers, having come second in the last 3 seasons. And Chelsea have a Conference League and, more importantly, beat last season's Champions League winners in the form of PSG to win the Club World Cup. Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea will be playing in the Champions League next season. Man United, on the other hand, have no European football to look forward to for the next 9 months, at least. No Europa, no Conference League, nothing. But they've still managed to splash the cash. Matter of fact, this summer is currently Man United's 3rd highest spending window in the last 10 years. And if the rumours are to be believed, United still have some spending to do. The only teams that would have probably spent more by the end of the window are Liverpool and Arsenal. Lest we forget, Liverpool still have all that Coutinho money, and of course they did win the league last season. United, on the other hand, finished 15th and were comfortably one of the worst teams to watch last season, perhaps only better than Spurs. But considering the fact that they lost in every single game that they played against Spurs last season, including the Europa League final, it's fair to say that aside from the teams that were relegated at the end of last season, United were probably the worst team in the Premier League last season. 15th place, while being easily one of the worst attacking teams in the league. Matter of fact, only 4 teams scored fewer goals than Man United last season. 3 of those teams ended up getting relegated, and the other one was Everton, who also ended the season as the 4th best performing defense in the league. Everton have Jordan Pickford in goal. They can afford to be stingy with their scoring and still get bailed out. United, for goodness sake, employ Andre Onana. In terms of goals coming from individual goal scorers, United's top scorers last season were Bruno Fernandes and Ahmad, 8 goals each. Out of Bruno's 8 goals, only 4 of them were from open play. Ahmad scored all 8 goals from open play, but 3 of those goals were blitzkrieg 12-minute hat-trick against the bottom of the table, eventually relegated Southampton. The only team with a top scorer that scored fewer goals than Man United's pair of Ahmad and Bruno is Southampton. 4 goals from Gangly Paul Onuachu. Yeah, it's bleak. Goals win games. United desperately need to win more games, and let's just say they've been busy shopping. Earlier in this video, I mentioned that United spent 230 million euros. That's a lot of money. Money that they've invested entirely on 3 new signings. 3 new attacking signings. Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo, and arguably the crown jewel, the out-and-out gunman tasked with one job. That job is to finish. Man United have completed the signing of 22-year-old 6'5" Slovenian centre-forward Benjamin Šeško from RB Leipzig. Cunha, Mbeumo and Sesko. That's 3 players expected to make the starting 11 for United every week. Between the 3 of them, Cunha, Mbeumo and Sesko scored 48 league goals last season. That's 4 more than the entire United squad managed last season. United only scored 44 goals in the league. This new trio, Ruben Amorim's 3 Musketeers, scored 48. Cunha had 15, Sesko had 13 in Germany, and Bryan Mbeumo was only outscored by the King Mo Salah, the robot Erling Haaland, and his snake Alexander Isak. Mbeumo, while mostly functioning as a winger, scored 20 goals in the league. All 3 players also considerably outperformed their XG. It's fair enough to say that United signed 3 mercenaries. But if you look at the actual context of United's team and how they intend to set up, I'm not fully convinced that this new setup is going to work. There's just too many new parts. Bruno, Højlund and Ahmad were the 3 players who often set up as the attacking trio in Amorim's 3-4-3 last season. By the time the season gets underway, we do not expect to see this trio ever start in this format ever again. Cunha is expected to line up as the left 10, thus forcing Bruno into a more deep-lying role as an 8 in the midfield pair. On the right, we expect Ahmad to be shifted out wide and deployed as a wing-back, with Mbeumo playing as the right 10. The Sesko signing will usurp Højlund as a starting striker, essentially banishing Højlund to any one of AC Milan, Galatasaray or a warm seat on the bench. This is where the problems begin to pop up. This is where the problems lie, in my opinion. Not the exile of Rasmus Højlund, but the introduction of so much change, and more importantly, the lack of familiarity and continuity. Don't get me wrong, United's average performances will probably improve compared to last season. In fact, after watching the way United played last year, it'd probably be more impressive if they managed to get worse, especially after spending all this money. But I digress. I see two major problems. The first one is the emergence of Bruno Fernandes as a kind of liability. I touched on it a bit earlier, but we assumed that Cunha was signed to play as a left 10, right? This essentially means Bruno will have to pair up with either one of Casemiro, Ugarte, or Maino in midfield. And Bruno aside, none of these players have really impressed when tasked with playing the role of an enforcer or an anchor. The real issue with Bruno is, despite how effective he is going forward with his ability to create chances, he does have a certain defensive and physical weakness to his game. Also, by the time you get to the middle of the season, he would have turned 31. He's not exactly the kind of player you want sitting on the edge of the center circle, trying to win the ball in transition or covering for a fullback out wide. He wants Bruno closer to the opposition goal. That's where he has proved himself to be so effective. Unless you have an elite athlete beside him, someone like Prime Kante, I think Bruno's game will suffer in this system and the team will probably be worse off too. The second problem I see, although a lot more minor, is the overabundance of players in midfield. My fear really lies with Kobbie Mainoo. 20 years old, World Cup year, he was already quite impressive at the Euros, but can you really say he has improved much since then? Realistically, in the short term, is there even a pathway for him at Manchester United, especially if we sign Baliba or another midfielder? If you had to bet right now, pricing in everything we know, does Kobbie start more than 20 games this season? So many questions. There's all this news about Garnacho being for sale and yet another youth player leaving the club, but Kobbie has about 2 years left on his current deal. I just have this sinking feeling that if he finds game time difficult to come by over the next few months and hesitates to sign his new contract, Kobbie might push for a move and United are ultimately forced into a sale. As much as I hate to even think about it, there is a possibility that Kobbie Mainoo isn't a United player in 18 months. Speaking of depth, Mason Mount is another player that I think will be asking questions about game time. We've just concluded pre-season, and I think out of all the players that were in the squad last season, Dogu, Euro and Mount are the three who I have changed my opinions on the most in a positive way. Dogu and Euro, I believe, these two speak for themselves, but Mount I think has been very decent. I look back at the Bournemouth game during the summer series in particular and I thought he looked really good. On that left hand side, I think he combines really well, almost in a little triangle with Bruno and Dorgu. I think with Bruno, the two of them are capable of playing on the same wavelength and I imagine that duo bringing a lot of excitement across the season. But then of course, with Sesko, Mbeumo and Cunha being signed, you wouldn't expect Mount to play more than 2,000 minutes this season. A shame because I believe Amorim really rates him, but at the same time, there's just so much competition that it would be idiotic to set up with all these players on the pitch at the same time. Ultimately, I'm really intrigued to see the knock-on effects that these new signings have over the course of the season. Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko should solve the goal-scoring problem, but ultimately I think the club has gone overboard with their recruitment in attack, and depending on how the teething process goes, things could yet get worse before they even get better. As for a prediction as to where United will finish in the league, I'm cautious to give one, but I think with what we have right now, top half for sure. And depending on how they finish the window, maybe with the statement signing in midfield or in goal, I could maybe see them pushing for Europe. For now, I'd go with 10th, just about scraping it into the top half. Well, that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, thanks. And if you don't, I hope you stick around to see the next one. Maybe I might change your mind. Cheers and goodbye.